So, illusions. Wow. We can't really have a video series about how we're asleep without talking about illusions. We all have them, some of them powerful. A lot of them, it seems to me at least, we are collective illusions, right? We basically are illusions that we are all participating in as co-conspirators, whether that be about the geopolitical situation of the world or ideologically constitutive illusions. There are so many. Reality is fraught with the shit. A lot of them we share, like the illusions that we're a victim, that the world is something that happens to us, that we are powerless, even the illusion that the sun revolves around the earth, which is one of the most powerful illusions that we are under the spell of. Instead of talking a lot about whatever the phenomenology of illusions, I think we all are pretty up to date on that. Let's instead interest ourselves of our own particular illusions. Let's ask ourselves a question. What are some of the illusions that I keep falling prey to, and why? Do they perhaps serve a hidden purpose? In a way, you might argue that asking ourselves what kind of illusions we're subject to is an absurd question, right? Because we wouldn't be subject to them if we could actually point to them. And that's why this exercise is so important. Because by listing these illusions that we keep like falling prey to, we make them visible to ourselves, and thus we make it easier to catch ourselves when they take over our minds or our perceptome. Some of the illusions that I personally tend to get stuck in, I notice, are really illusions that are limiting my own view of myself, like the unquestioned idea that I can't just do anything, right? That is an illusion that I certainly am often under the spell of. This feeling that, no, I probably shouldn't try this whatever big dream because it won't work out. And that's success is something that other people, that's a very prevalent illusion in my mind. And I think actually it's quite ubiquitous in our culture, this idea that success is for other people. Like if other people tried this thing that I want to try, they would have success with it, but not me. Like somebody else will outcompete me and I will just end up not having success with whatever idea it might be. So that is a self-limiting illusion that I often catch myself being the victim of, or victimizing myself with, you might say. What might be other illusions? Well, there's of course the whole victim narrative that the world is something that happens to me and that I'm not really responsible, despite the fact that I am the interpreter of every situation I am in. I get to decide what meanings I imbue the situation with, how I interpret whatever happens. But when victimhood kicks in, illusion kicks in. And yes, as always, I would love to hear, if you're willing to share, what some of the illusions you tend to get stuck in are and why. Okay, so how to break free of illusion? Well, if we're going to do the rough and ready version, I would say obviously it's very difficult to break out of an illusion if we are unable to catch ourselves in the illusion. And therefore, I would say the very first step is really to become profoundly enamored with reality, to fall in love with reality, to become, I would say, almost monomaniacally oriented towards truth and reality. When this becomes like at the top of our list of priorities, our relationship to actual real reality, then we are both motivated and positioned to catch ourselves when illusion tries to take over our mind or our perception, our perspective. And so you cannot wake up from illusion if you're unwilling to acknowledge that you're potentially under some illusion. It's related in this way to the whole problem of realizing that we're asleep that we talked about in the last video. So acknowledging it, being like fundamentally in love with reality and learning to call our own bluff, because who is hosting these illusions? It's really ourselves, right? So it's really to transcend or to wake up from an illusion is really kind of like a dialogue between two sides of yourself, right? There is the part of us that wants to stay asleep, and then there is the other part who is the reality-loving truth seeker. That is basically it. Being a hardliner on reality in our own mental lives. That is really how to wake up from illusion, I think. Or at least one of the most powerful ways of positioning ourselves in a way so that we are prone to catch ourselves, putting ourselves asleep with illusion, but also putting ourselves in a position where we have the confidence and we don't give a shit about that side in us that wants to maintain the illusion, and instead we put our eggs in the basket of the part of us that wants to wake up. But here's another question. Maybe a deeper question. Would I, if I had the choice, prefer to be absolutely without illusion? And if not, why? Me personally, I'm actually not sure. Like a deep part of me loves the drama of life and the drama of having a mind, which means, among other things, how illusions might come in and color our worldview or our lives in different ways, right? And so I'm actually not convinced that I would want to live absolutely and fully without any illusion, simply because I find illusions interesting. And I find waking up from them extremely liberating. And so I wouldn't want to be without illusions. So I would have something to wake up from and derive the pleasure I get from it. But what about you? How do you feel about it? Oh, yeah. And by the way,